about the time and all of that.
Don't worry about it. I have to apologize, but today it's crazy because I'm receiving a couple of TV interviews and I already agreed to one and it's too late to cancel them because it's going to be live.
Okay.
That's why. So all along, I thought we have 1 hour and then later I saw the timing that you had. I felt like, oh my God, I can't do both.
Okay. Thank you for doing this for us.
Thank you for having me with you, and please, in the future, we can definitely have other follow-up discussions. It's a very important topic, as you're going to see what I'm going to say in my remarks, and there's a lot that one can talk about gas, natural gas.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So at what point are we going to start meeting the participants?
We are meeting them now. They can all join so I can start, please. You can assist in meeting them.
Did you say I should? Okay, because
yes, we are admitting them. Please admit them. Kindly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she's off now. I think on start before I. Yeah.
A very good afternoon, very distinguished participants. Thank you for registering to be part of this monthly technical session organized by the Society of Petroleum Engineers Abuja section. Thank you for joining. We kindly advise that for the next few minutes, you first of all mute your microphone if you're not speaking. Kindly mute your microphone if you're not speaking.
Dr. Carol.
Sana kidne mana gaskiya sauri gaskiya 4 days just like 2 days. Wallahi.
Okay. Thank you once again for joining. I would like to advise that if you're not speaking, you kindly leave your microphone on mute so that's not to interfere. So this technical session will be an engaging and an interesting one. So we please advise that you kindly share the link. This event is also live streamed on YouTube. So we advise that you please share the link and circulate it around so that all energy enthusiasts can be part of this webinar. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. So we will commence in, let's say, a few minutes. Thank you for joining. Okay. Very distinguished participants and members of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, you're welcome to the monthly technical session organized by the SPE Abuja section. I would like to say a warm welcome to the leadership of the SPE Nigerian Council, a warm welcome to the leadership and members of SPE Abuja section, a warm welcome to the leaders and staff of Cypher Crescent Limited. Of course, Cypher Crescent is our technical partner for this event. We know that there's a popular quote by Helen Keller that says, alone we can do little and together we can do so much. Thank you so much, Cypher Crescent, for accepting to partner with the Society of Petroleum Engineers Abuja section to make this event a success. I want to say a warm welcome to all of our distinguished speakers, our moderator, captains of industries, energy enthusiasts, and everybody that have joined this webinar today. My name is Ofofono Akpan, and my pleasure it is to serve as your MC for the first part of this event. Of course, if you look at your screen, you would see the order of events for this webinar. This event is built to last for 2 hours, and God willing, all things being equal, by 6 p.m. would be done and would gain so much knowledge. Now, back to the crux of this event. According to the Oil and Gas Journal in the year 2019, it was stated that Nigeria has the largest natural gas reserve in Africa, with an estimated 200.4 trillion cubic feet. 200.4 trillion cubic feet. Now, this leads to the plethora of questions, especially as we are aware of the ambitious plan of Mr. President Buhari, the decade of gas, which he aims to entirely power our economy with gas by the year 2020. Now, the questions: how can the world, how can Africa, how can Nigeria effectively transition into cleaner energy source without jeopardizing energy demand and still meeting environmental protection targets? Can natural gas fill the energy gap in this transition? Is gas a key resource for green energy transition? Of course, that's a theme for today. Of course, we are so lucky, we're so excited to have an array of amazing speakers, respectable thought leaders with significant experience in the topic and trends of energy transition. So permit me as I quickly and most respectfully recognize some of our speakers and of course our guests here present today. Let me start by saying a warm welcome. When I welcome you, I would like to hear your voice and probably you say a few words. I'd like to say a warm welcome, first of all, to the section chairman of the Society of Petroleum Engineers Abuja section, in the person of Madam Aminat and Madami. A warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for joining. We also like to say a warm welcome to the programs chair of SP Abuja section. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here today. Mr. Victor Anoche, welcome, sir. We also like to say a warm welcome to our moderator, our amazing moderator for today, who would soon spearhead the panel session. I speak of the Chief Executive Officer of Crystal Energy, Dr. Carol Nicol. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am, for joining. I also say a warm welcome to the General Manager District, Nigeria Ajib Oil Company Limited, Alessandro Tiny. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody.
Okay, a warm welcome to the Managing Director, Seplat West Limited, Engineer Folorunso Folabi. Welcome, sir. Okay. And also a warm welcome to the Managing Partner, Eco City Project, Norbert Shalsuk. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, welcome, sir. Of course, a warm welcome to the Managing Director and CEO, Walter Smith Petroman Oil Limited, Mr. Chikezie Ngosu. Welcome to you, sir.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me.
Okay, and the last but not the least, we'd like to say a warm welcome to the Technical Advisor, Gas, Business and Policy Implementation to the Honorable Minister of State, Petroleum, Engineer Justice De Rafaka. Well, welcome to you, sir. Okay, we also want to welcome all leaders and board members of SP Abuja section. Thank you so much for joining us. All leadership and members, staff of Cypher Crescent, thank you for joining us. All student members of the SPE, thank you and thank you. So very quickly, we know that the oil and gas industry is pertinent about safety. So very quickly, I will read through a few of the safety brief for today. The first and foremost, we would like to advise that if you're not speaking, you kindly mute your microphone so as not to interfere with all of the speakers. If you want to speak, kindly raise your hands. And of course, the moderator would give you the opportunity to speak. Of course, the very next brief is that you kindly use your chat buttons, C for comments and Q for questions. And of course, you will be properly attended to. While you are in this meeting, we also advise that you ensure that you can still hear the fire alarm wherever you are and be alert and aware of your environment. We know we are in the COVID-19 period. Please endeavor to wear face masks. If you're in a public environment, kindly use a sanitizer. And of course, observe all COVID-19 protocols. If you are driving through this meeting, we advise that you also find a safe space to park your vehicle and be part of this meeting. Thank you so much, as we know that we'll finish this event in all safety. At this juncture, I would like to welcome our amazing, our amiable, our phenomenal, observant, strategic, and very optimistic section chair for her welcome address. Madam Amina Demadami, the future stage is yours.
Good afternoon, our distinguished speakers, our moderator, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining our session. Abuja Society of Petroleum Engineers, Abuja section. SPE remains the largest individual member organization, as we all know, and serving managers, engineers, professionals, and the mission is to, of course, exchange technical knowledge on how to drive the energy industry forward. So in that line, in line with our vision of making sure that we impart knowledge on our members and being the place for professionals in the oil and gas industry, Abuja section brings to you this very interesting session discussing topical issues as always. And this is very pertinent for now, considering the climate change issues and the, all the pressure about net zero, achieving net zero, removing fossil fuel from the energy mix and all of that. I think is a very pertinent conversation to have. And we have an excellent array of panelists who are going to do justice to this session. I'm not going to talk much so that I don't let the cat out of the bag. So I'll urge you to sit tight, have your pen and paper ready with your questions and take notes while we listen to a very engaging and educative conversation. Thank you very much. I would specifically like to thank Carol, who has been a pioneer and has been driving, support for women in energy industry, for agreeing, even though she had some other tight schedule, to still join us here and moderate. Thank you to our amazing speakers who are all personal friends of mine who have agreed to speak and give their perspectives on the issues. Thank you very much for joining, and it promises to be a very exciting program. Thank you to all our members for their support, to my executive members who are here and those who could not join due to some other issues. Thank you very much, everyone. And it promises to be a very nice program. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that short, brief welcome remark. Maybe you did not know, I would like to inform you that Madam Amina Demadami is the first female section chairman of the SPE Abuja section. Was to describe her charismatic, visionary, and very diligent. Thank you so much, Madam Amina Demadami, for that brief welcome remarks. Very quickly, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, switching gears immediately, would like to have an address, an opening remark by the Director of Business Development of Cypher Crescent Limited. At this juncture, I'd like to welcome Anyekan Udo for his remark. Anyekan, please, the future stage is yours. You may kindly raise your hand if you're in the meeting so that we can unmute you if you can't unmute yourself.
Maybe he was logged out because I let him into the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
So I believe we would come back for his opening remark. Once again, we'd like to say a big thank you to Cypher Crescent Limited for accepting to be a technical partner and helping us spearhead this event. Mr. Nikanudor, once again, if you are available, we'd like to hear from you on behalf of Cypher Crescent Limited. Okay. Okay, I guess we'll come back for his remark.
No, I think did he send a message now saying that you muted all?
Okay,
I can see the chat box. Yeah, I think it's a message from him, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, and Udo?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you very much for accepting to collaborate with Cypher Crescent to pioneer this all-important topic by the Society of Petroleum Engineers, Abuja chapter. Energy transition is very important and very dear to Cypher Crescent, because one of the concerns, the major motivation to the launching of Cypher Crescent as a business is to provide the enabling technologies that would allow oil and gas and energy companies drive their processes most efficiently. And Cypher Crescent is very much interested and working alongside other global stakeholders in the energy transition journey. So to us, we would like to see energy made available, accessible, affordable to drive the global industrial processes and other activities of mankind. And we are already committing lots of resources in our researches to ensure that we continue to provide top-notch technologies to those who are involved in providing the emerging energies to the world. So to that extent, we are very passionate to see how this discourse would go. And maybe we are very passionate to the extent that the outcome of this discourse would also maybe shape the way we program our ongoing research activities in the energy transition. So thank you, SP Abuja. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you, all the listeners that have came in. We wish you a very interesting time as we all hook on to listen to the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Cypher Crescent. Thank you, the Director of Business Development, Nikanudor. We appreciate you, sir. Switching gears immediately, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we'd love to most officially hand over the session to the moderator. We'd like to advise that throughout the course of this event, you may want to take notes, you may want to write down and have your questions, which will be taken after the panel session. We'll advise that you also know that this Zoom meeting accepts only 100 participants. So the event is live streamed on YouTube. So we'll drop the link on YouTube so that in case you cannot log in on Zoom again, you try the YouTube. So the account for the Abuja account is SP Abuja section. So kindly endeavor to search SP Abuja section and you find us streaming on YouTube. At this juncture, I'd like to welcome our moderator for today. Of course, on the screen, as you can see, our moderator is a multi-award winning CEO of Crystal Energy. She's an advisory, research, and training company based in London. She's a woman of a leading light, an author, a lecturer, and of course, will serve in the best capacity as moderator for today. Help me welcome the Chief Executive Officer of Crystal Energy, in the person of Dr. Carol Nicol, for her session. Ma'am, the visual stage is yours.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction and for having me with you today. And a special thank you to Amina, who was very diligent and persistent when she sent me the message on LinkedIn, because I'm not that great at responding to messages on social media, but now I learned the lesson, so I try to be more consistent. It's a great pleasure to be here with you, and I hope we can meet in person soon. But what is also interesting about the discussion today is that we're touching on a very, very important subject. Now, for those of you who are in sub-Saharan Africa, you may not be aware of what's going on in Europe, or at least you may be aware, but you don't really feel the impact. But we are having serious, gas crisis in Europe. Prices have increased by more than 600% from the beginning of the year, and that is, if you compare it to oil has increased by maybe around 38% by comparison to natural gas. So a lot is happening in natural gas markets, and natural gas. What I find interesting about it is that it's still an evolving story. So with oil, you have established international markets, key players, we know how they interact. We have a better understanding of how they will impact the markets through the fundamentals, demand and supply. With natural gas, one of the main fundamental differences with oil is that we still don't have global markets. We have regional markets. But in the past, if, for example, something happened in Asia, we wouldn't really worry about it too much in Europe. We wouldn't worry about it in Africa or in North America. Those main, gas markets were pretty isolated and insulated from each other. But since the advent and the development of LNG, the liquefied natural gas technology, this kind of separation between markets has been weakening. And today we do worry about what's happening in Asia, because it will impact markets in Europe. This is one of the important development happening in natural gas. And the other important development is the fact that not long time ago, natural gas was the unwanted fuel. And there was to be a very common joke among explorers that what was worse than finding a dry hole, it would be finding natural gas, because we didn't know what to do with it. Now, of course, this is completely different today. I think natural gas is a valuable asset, valuable resource, and it's still very saddening to see that an important chunk of the production in some countries, including in sub-Saharan Africa, is still flared or burnt, wasted, and that for me is very sad to see, though we are seeing progress, improvement in that direction. But the big question is, how does the future of natural gas look like? At the end, natural gas is a fossil fuel. So we do have the climate zealots. They want to end fossil fuel consumption and production today before tomorrow, including natural gas. But there are the more moderate voices that are saying, no, hold on a minute, that would be a big mistake, because natural gas emits less carbon dioxide than the other two fossil fuels, particularly when it comes to coal. I think it's more than 40% of carbon dioxide emission per kilowatt hour. And therefore, natural gas can be the bridge fuel between today's world, which is dominated by oil, coal, and natural gas, and coal in particular in power generation. Many people don't realize that globally, the share of coal in power generation has been stubborn for the last 35 years. And there is this kind of direct competition between coal and gas. And the simple switch from coal to gas in power generation can accelerate the energy transition by reducing carbon dioxide emission. So there is this kind of advantage that natural gas has over the other two fossil fuels, primarily coal and and oil, but also the fact that the technology of renewable energy is not quite if you want, a standalone technology, because again, that's something that we experienced here in Europe this year. When the wind was not blowing on what was supposed to be the windiest days of the year, people turned to natural gas as an alternative, because we cannot really store the electricity from wind or from the sun. So you need another fuel that can step in and then can fill the gap when the sun is not shining and the wind is not blowing. And what is better than natural gas to do that? However, there is this fear that because of the climate change policies, the aggressive push for ending the fossil fuel eras. We see that people are reporting underinvestment in natural gas, and that could backfire in the future because that could lead to greater volatility and higher prices than what we are seeing today. So many factors to take into consideration, and that's why I find this discussion particularly useful. And I love the title about whether natural gas has a played role in the energy transition. I strongly believe it does, but it is not a fait accompli. It's not secured because about pricing, price competition, technology, green technology, and so many other factors that I'm looking forward to hear from each of our speakers about the various angles that I mentioned and those that I largely overlooked. But let me stop here and welcome our first speaker, keynote speaker, who will give us a keynote address for maybe 20 minutes. It's Mr. Alessandro Tiani, who's a General Manager, District, Nigerian Ajib Oil Company Limited. And I look forward to hearing your view before moving on to our panel discussion. Mr. Tiani, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carol. Well, you said it also. Well, first of all, thanks for all SPE for inviting me to this discussion. You know, I'm working in Port Harcourt for NAOC, and I'm also, you know, passionate not only of energy but of SPE. I think the Society of Petroleum Engineers is one of the tools we have to develop ourselves. So I've always been part of it. I've been chairman of SPE Italian section. Thank you so, Amina, also as well for the invitation. And well, the question of today, let me share my slides. The question of today came out of a discussion with my, let's say, friend, and I think one technology leader, thank God, Egbe, that is one of the director and leaders of Cypher Crescent, because, you know, he was asking me, why don't you come to make a discussion about, you know, digital technologies, application, etc. I told him, thank God, today there is another topic that is hot and where digital can be applied as well, but, you know, and we came up with this question. And I want to repeat the question to you now. Is gas a key resource for green energy transition? Do you think that? Because I made this question to him. He replied me, yes. So I want to make a poll. Raise your hand if you believe the reply is yes. Because honestly, if you believe yes, okay, we are done. We can go home now. We can go to work. We are all very busy. You know, it seems a trivial question, but Carol explained some of the things that really are important to understand how this question is important. So, apart the jokes, let me go through the outline of my presentation. I will go first to discuss a little bit how the world has changed. We are changed during the last 1.5 years in several reasons: pandemic, energy transition, and then to discuss our emission footprint, with particular focus on Nigeria, on Africa, and what this means for these countries. Then we go to the key question, why gas as a key transition source? And well, I will keep this question for later. Then there is another question, why not? And I believe it's really important to build a consensus of gas. Of course, I am for the yes, but to build consensus of gas, we really need to understand the reasons of those that are saying why not. And as you know, as technical people, we need also to remedy and to convince them that this is the way to go. Then we go to the iceberg emission problem that I will not tell you what is the iceberg now. If you guess, try to guess, you will see in the last slide, and a conclusion about a well-managed crisis, what we have to do, or at least what are some things we might do. So moving to the next slide. Well, the world has changed. We are changed. Now, what happened? I mean, this is a personal reflection. I realized, you know, what has to do pandemic and climate change? What has to do pandemic and energy transition, gas crisis? not much. I mean, they are quite not linked, but there is one very important link that is not logical. I think that, COVID-19 pandemic experience, which is a global experience, everybody in the world had this experience, and this created a global movement, triggered a global conscience on climate change action. Basically, the subliminal message seems to have been, our world is under threat. Pandemic delivered the message, and now we have to act. And when we decided to act in one of the lingering problems that have been lingering threats that have been announced since 20 years, and the action was still, in the board, in the governments, in the discussion. Now, I believe everybody really wants the change. Now, everybody wants energy transition, want to reduce pollution, want to reduce carbon emissions, and to save our energy. So there is this factor that gives a boost, together with other economic factors, to the urgency for energy transition. So talking about energy transition, we need to talk about the emissions and our so-called footprint. So I found this nice graph because, it replicates a footprint, but every ball is the amount of emission of different countries. And I put a circle on the African countries. You can see the red circle. These are all African countries. And if you remove South Africa, the others are really emitting, their emission level is low. So what does it mean? That there is no responsibility? No, I don't think so. What does it mean is that, emissions go together with development. You can see China, you can see United States. So countries that had a rate of growth, an explosion in their economies, and an increased number of people out of poverty, access to energy, increased their emissions. And I believe this is the right ambition of Nigeria, of Africa, is one problem, bring people out of poverty, bring people, give access to energy to the people, good health service, everything. And this creates emissions. So do you think these things are less important than energy transition, global emissions? I think not. Basically the two things need to come together. And this means that, what I wrote here, a just transition need to listen to the ambitions of emerging economies for growth while changing the energy mix. Now, there is another point. Developed country might not increase their energy consumption because together with the transition, they will improve the energy efficiency probably. So basically they have to move their consumption from hydrocarbon to less polluting fuel, and renewables play a key role. But when we go to Nigeria, the energy consumption will have to grow significantly, cannot be compensated by energy efficiency. So the transition will have to be delivered. And this is where really, I believe gas plays a key role. But before saying that, we need to compare how energy transition is seen or can be seen in different ways. In developed countries, I come from Italy, I want to be responsible, I buy an electrical car. Is that all? No, but this is one trend. It's not bad. I'm not saying that, but this brings development, further development, car industry, electrical car industry, further investment. In developing countries cannot go backward. Basically, this repeats what I said before. We need also developing countries to develop, to grow, while we pursue a strategy of decarbonization. So this is where gas is playing really a great role, because to ensure we continue access to energy while growing, while reducing the carbon footprint, gas will play a very big role. So moving at gas now, gas, everybody knows, or if you don't know, has a lower carbon content. So the emission of gas are less than the emission of oil and coal to produce electricity. And also the efficiency in energy transformation is higher. So in principle, I can get the same electricity, I say it's simple, same electricity with gas lower emission than if I burn oil or coal. This is easy. Also, we need to understand that gas has an infrastructure and a technology that is mature. So gas can leverage existing infrastructure, can fill existing infrastructure, can, the investment to develop gas can be marginal, incremental, rather than the investment of other technology that have even renewables. The renewables, even if they are quite mature, in order to increase their percentage impact in the energy provision, there is a big need of batteries because or equivalent system, because renewables are discontinuous. Gas is a mature industry, let's say. So this is, let's say, easy technologically. And then gas is abundant. As Carol said, this was a negative time ago. But now, if we have to bet on gas, gas, we don't have to go to explore gas in remote location, sometimes even difficult or environmentally complicated. Drilling in exploration wells and making developments of hydrocarbon in the Arctic can be an environmental risk. Gas is abundant. It's abundant in Nigeria, it's abundant in Africa, it's abundant worldwide. So the gas reserve possibly do not even need to be discovered. And if so, there is a large upside. And finally, there is an upside that we can even lower the emission of gas by transforming gas into the so-called blue hydrogen. Basically, hydrogen is a gas that can be used in a similar way to methane, natural gas. And the conversion of gas into nitrogen is a very well-known technology through thermal or steam reforming. However, normally this creates emission. In order to reduce this emission, you can use carbon capture, utilization and storage projects. So basically you take the CO2, and once you transform natural gas into hydrogen, the CO2 resulting from the process, you will try to bury into deeper reservoir, water reservoir, or to utilize in other ways. In this way, gas will become even less impactful from a carbon point of view. So as you can see, there are a lot of good reasons. And these are some numbers that were already mentioned, but just for a recap, as you can see, especially in Africa, natural gas is abundant. Nigeria has huge reserves of gas, and it's first, and then there is Mozambique. And while you see, so it's a low carbon intensive technology and can be used really to power the population and promote the social economical development. So gas is easy to promote that development, that access to energy, that ambition to grow that Nigeria and other African country has, and we need to support. Of course, there are things to improve because, as an example, in Nigeria today, there are about 13 gigawatts of installed capacity. However, not all is available, and there are programs to improve the transmission network in order to give more access to the already available plants. Now, let's move to those that say, no, gas is not my business. And, who said this is not, it's not people, let's say, it's not small talk. There are important studies of even universities and other NGOs that really point out a number of issues that we have with gas and that we responsibly need to tackle. First, one, information. Methane has 25 times warming potential, meaning climate change, global warming effect, than CO2. So if I emit methane, 1 cubic meter of methane is like 24 cubic meter of CO2 or more or less. So this means that methane emissions are even more important than CO2 emissions and must be controlled and must be reduced. And the second point is that the majority of methane emissions worldwide, 60% or about, come from fossil fuel production and usage. So if we increase also the share of natural gas or replacing oil and coal, the amount of emissions coming from methane will increase. And these are the emissions accounted. Then many people say that there are a lot of methane emissions that are not accounted because the venting of methane in the air without flaring might not be seen. And this can be due to leakage of pipeline or natural process chimneys that emit methane. There are important studies that show that, and also satellite study images that show that there are important methane emissions, as you can see in the United States, associated to the fracking industry and the oil and gas from shale. There are other areas worldwide where emissions are high and are associated to somehow not completely controlled emissions of methane. And this is something I believe we really need to study as technicians. This is a very important area where we need to be able to measure the emissions, to declare the emission correctly and to measure whatever is happening as an emission. Finally, I talk about this kind of emission that are difficult to account, or might be difficult to account if you are not properly running the business in the right way and taking the proper measurements. But then there is a problem peculiar to Nigeria, and we go to the famous iceberg I announced before. Well, these are really Nigerian peculiar problems: illegal bunkering and artisanal refining, massive oil spills related to this activity, and sabotage of gas lines really bring huge economic loss to the nation, and this has been discussed widely. Also huge environmental damage, because this happens in the places where illegal refineries occur, far from everywhere. So, and unaccounted emission, because imagine the level of emission of this completely not regulated, unhealthy activity. And that's why the iceberg. If we have to take a decision to use gas, we need to responsibly base this decision on the correct numbers. And the correct number of emission might not be what we can see. That is a part of the iceberg that we can see. But we need also to consider the part of the iceberg that nobody knows how much it is, but that we cannot see, and that it's relevant. And this has to stop. There is no other way to be radical with that. This has to stop completely. I think this was my almost last slide, next to last. So let's go to the conclusion. A well-managed crisis. I used, I don't know if you know the Greek word crisis. In English or in Italian, the word crisis normally has a negative meaning something that is a problem. In reality, the Greek word crisis means choice, means the decision point. And this is a crisis. So, and this is a crisis we can manage very well, that can bring positive development, that can bring technological development. What we should do, everybody can have his own recipes. Let's say a few things. First, we have to ensure we reduce gas emissions associated to the whole gas cycle. And this must be done with the technological support, with the support of policy regulations and voluntary actions by the operators to reduce flaring and emissions, and particularly to monitor and reduce to the barest minimum fugitive emissions or leakages. And of course, gas flaring, I give it for granted, need to go to zero. And the stop of unaccounted emission from illegal businesses, or let me say, the stop of illegal businesses that generate unaccounted emission and in general. This will have to come together with access to energy, access to growth and possibility of growing. So natural gas is a natural leverage for that, especially for developing countries like Nigeria. And it must be ensured that transition does not mean reduction of energy availability per capita. It is important to work on gas reserve development and replacement. So there are investment to be done, and gas to power project that, like, you know, in Egypt, we've just we completed since not much the doubling of our Okpai power plant, that from about 470 megawatt increase its capacity to around 700 megawatt. And in this way will become one of the first power plant of the countries. Gas to power projects are key to provide electricity. And then look at new technology, how new technology and blue hydrogen, as an example, can further, in a second step, come and further reduce the emission associated to gas. I guess this is the end of my presentation. I hope this speech was useful to trigger some good discussion for the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. I'm pretty sure this is going to trigger lots of questions, lots of comments. I particularly love the footprint graph. It's the first time I see that. Was my my favorite terms of illustrating who is emitting what, and compared to, you can see that China and the US are the largest carbon dioxide emitters, whereas Africa is still in the small category. I also loved how you brought up a topic which I have to admit, in the developed world, in the richer world, what we call the OECD, if you want, we tend to overlook, and that is particularly the concept of access to energy and access to electricity. So we talk about, for example, the spread of electric vehicles and electrification of the whole society. But what's the point of having an electric vehicle if you don't really have electricity to charge the battery? What do you do with it? I mean, if I were to buy my mother who lives in Lebanon an electric vehicle, she's going to return it to me and tell me, thank you very much, it's no use for me. So that's an aspect that this is where we need to bridge the realities of the poorer countries, one that are still struggling with access to energy, access to electricity, and the ambitions of the richer world. And there is one more thing I'm going to highlight, even though, you know, I loved everything you put in your slides, but what you mentioned about hydrogen and the potential for blue hydrogen. It's amazing how many people out there, including in the financial community, don't realize that the oil and gas industry has been producing hydrogen for years and for decades, used, you know, in the petchem and the refining to improve the efficiency of the refineries. So that's something people are not aware of. The technology is out there, but we need to make it cleaner in terms of minimizing the impact on the environment. Anyway, so we leave the details to the discussion later on with the Q&A. But for now, I would like to move to Mr. Chizeki Nwozu, and I hope I did your name justice. Who's a Chief Executive Officer at Walter Smith Petroman Oil Limited. We're going to have 15 minutes of discussion. I'm not sure if Mr. Nwozu has any slides, or do we go straight into a Q&A discussion between us? Can you kindly confirm?
I do have some slides.
All right.
And I don't know whether or not I have access to share them. I'm not able to show myself because the Chike.
Let's ask our colleagues, SP Abuja, if we can give access for screen sharing.
Access given.
All right.
Okay, it depends on which of the, who have you given access to? Because I came in on 2 devices. So give access to Chike Mosu.
Okay, on that now.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, but we cannot see you.
Yeah, I can't start my video. You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. That's the message I get.
Okay, so we should ask also the host to give you access to your to start your video. I'm going to stop my video so people can see you on the screen. Hopefully, if the video works.
I still get the same comment. It's Chike Mosu you're supposed to give access for video.
But maybe just for to save time while we're working on the video access, you may want to go through your presentation, and I'll see if I can give you access from my side. But I think it's a host who should do that. But hopefully we'll resolve it. But please, the floor is yours.
Yes, let me go through my slides. So thank you. Sorry?
You have been given access.
Okay, let me try. Okay, let me just go through the slides here. Okay, if you can hear me clearly, thanks very much to Alessandro for setting a wonderful scene around this question around gas and energy transition. I'll go through a couple of slides very quickly to make it clear on how we are approaching this thing from the point of view of Walter Smith. So first of all, just very quickly, the slide says the challenges facing us, and this is about balancing the energy and climate change demands. And it is particularly important for Nigeria and African countries and developing countries to ensure that they understand what is happening globally, but they're also able to think locally or regionally. Now, the drive, just like Alessandro has mentioned, there's a global drive to reduce reliance on fossil fuels. However, for Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the rest of Africa, we also need to consume energy to grow our GDP, provide job opportunities, support our communities and all that. And that is sometimes in conflict with this, demand to, go straight into renewable energy. So you will see in the course of what I'm going to present, my thoughts around it and what my company is doing to get around this problem. So I'm focusing in on Nigeria, and what I'm showing to you is the, per capita electricity consumption from data taken in 2019 for a number of African countries. You can see, and this is in kilowatt hour per capita. You can see where Nigeria is. And, clearly a lot of African countries are not consuming a lot of electricity. And there's a direct relationship between the energy consumption or electricity consumption and GDP growth. And because we are not consuming that much in Africa, we are lagging significantly behind in terms of so many metrics to do with GDP growth. So the challenge we face is that in this world where people are talking about the transition to clean energy and the initial large hurdles, I'm going to talk about that later, in starting a renewable energy journey, we have to balance that with respect to, with the energy demands and energy needs that Africa needs to grow with. Okay. Now, the next slide, I just want to point out, these are some metrics with respect to the population growth that we expect to have in Nigeria. It's about 2.4% on a compounded average growth rate. And therefore, our population by 2040 is supposed to be getting to over 300 million people. If you look at the GDP and GDP per capita growth, you can see that the compounded average growth rate is about 3.7%, and that is a little lowered after the COVID, pandemic issues that we have had to encounter. But that is also a significant growth rate that is dependent very strongly on the consumption of energy. Now, if you take a look at where the energy demand is going to come from, in terms of different industries, you can see that there is an aggressive change in demands that is going to come very soon, that is facing us right now. And we cannot, afford to, continue to waste the most important resource that we have for this energy group, which is gas. So when they talk about the decade of gas, this growth in our consumption and the direct impact on our GDP is going to come from gas. So the question is gas going to be the green energy for the green transition or green energy? I'm going to go beyond that. It is not only going to be that, fossil fuel that will help us transit, it will also be a mainstay of our overall energy portfolio going forward. And I'll explain that later on. All the talk about renewables have to be balanced with certain challenges that renewables have, whether it be solar, whether it be biofuels or wind, and the need to make sure that those challenges are met by supporting the renewable energy, the transition into renewable energy with a cleaner fossil fuel, which is gas. In terms of, Walter Smith has taken a look and, about load allocation. And in our areas of operation, we're looking at areas around us because our own strategy is aligned with what some of the things I've just mentioned now. We are going to transit into renewables. We're thinking about solar PV, but we're going to start with gas. So we have a 300 megawatt gas to power license, and that is what we're going to use to deliver gas to the areas around us that have a significant commercial and industrial need to consume more power. So our strategy is totally aligned with gas, not only as a transition fuel, as I mentioned, but you find it out later on as a sustainable way of supporting the transition to renewables. Now, our approach with respect to sustainability, I'll focus on some of the sustainable development goals. And I'm looking at SDG 7, 11, and 9. And to focus in on the conversation here is around SDG 7 on affordable and clean energy. And what I've shown here, the blue line on the graph, shows that we are going to be increasing rapidly our energy delivery through gas. That's actually what that represents, aggressively increasing that energy delivery because we understand the requirements for consumption by Nigeria. That in effect, if you look at the orange line, which has the metrics are the vertical line on the right, it shows that in the short to medium term, we are going to be increasing our CO2 emissions in metric tons per megawatt hour of power that we produce. That is a fact that Africa has to grow up to, Nigeria has to grow up to, and we as a company are going to drive. At some time, you can see there's a point there at which the reversal starts. And that is when we intend to start the process of replacing some of the gas to power with solar PVs, and therefore start reducing the overall impact of CO2 emissions per megawatt hour of power that we produce. Now, what we do to make sure that we can continue to track this, because that graph is not just a picture, is that we continue to measure our GHG emissions. We monitor them and we measure them against the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission's limits. And we see we are doing quite well apart from CO2. So we have to address how to start managing the CO2. And the CO2 really comes from our diesel usage, especially for what we produce from the refinery and what we consume in our operations as well. The other way we look at this is we are talking about diversification first, and you can see the first part is gas commercialization, whether it be piped natural gas, compressed natural gas, or liquefied natural gas. We are going to use it for power generation. So gas is going to be that fossil fuel that we're going to concentrate our efforts on. And then we're going to go into a decarbonization route where we introduce hybrid solar solutions at our well sites. We increase the energy efficiency of our existing power generation assets and other equipment, and we reduce fugitive emissions. And so that path through decarbonization will finally lead us to a point where we will combine the diversification and decarbonization and digitize all our operations. And that's where some of the stories around, what Cyber Crescent is doing about bringing in digitization into the entire story around the energy transition would be very important. Hello, can you still hear me? Hello, can you still hear me?
Yeah, now we can, but for a few seconds we lost you. Please go ahead.
Okay. In terms of our gas commercialization, we're looking at upstream, midstream, and downstream businesses, about our AG processor production and NAG, and then further on delivering it through different areas. I'll go quickly through. We have looked at CNG opportunities. So what I'm trying to show you is the opportunity space. So when people say, is gas going to be the resource? The opportunity space is so alarmingly diverse and available that we shouldn't be having that argument in Nigeria. So there are CNG opportunities. I won't go into too much detail because of time. There are PNG, so pipe natural gas opportunities everywhere you look around in the country. There are LPG opportunities, massive LPG opportunities, and there's the bigger LNG opportunity as well. So the opportunities for gas to be utilized as a fuel to drive GDP growth in Nigeria are massive. Now, a little bit about hydrogen, because hydrogen came up. One of the most important things people don't realize is that there is blue hydrogen, which has been mentioned already, brown or gray hydrogen production combined with carbon capture and storage. And the next slide just explains that basically the hydrogen produced from fossil fuels is the lowest cost hydrogen. And therefore, when you're looking for hydrogen for whatever purposes you have, the world has to recognize that the hydrogen from fossil fuels is the cheapest source of hydrogen. So that whole thing around energy transition and levelizing hydrogen production costs from natural gas and even from coal, but let's concentrate on natural gas. That is where we are going to have to build that capacity within Nigeria. There are opportunities as well for the utilization of hydrogen in refining, which Walter Smith is involved in, potential hydrogen uptake in iron and steel and in cement factories. Last but not the least, one of the things we always consider is our ESG component, and that's about lighting up our communities. So while we discuss this transition, while we discuss delivering power to our own facilities, to the national grid and all that, one of the first tests of this is going to be lighting up our communities. And therefore, we're working on gas to power projects and solar energy power projects for our host communities to make sure that we deliver to them, not after we deliver to ourselves, but ahead of delivering to ourselves. Now, this is my last slide to indicate, the on-grid generation capacity by source, which is taken from some work done by Wood Mackenzie. And you can see that even though there is a contribution from renewables, the contribution from gas is going to still continue to be substantial for many more years to come. I won't go into any more slides. The last one is about our business imperatives. So thank you very much. And I will just go back to the question that was asked, is gas a key resource for green energy transition? And the answer coming from Walter Smith, who is an operator involved in this, is an absolute yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this clear answer that yes, gas has a role to play, an important role and a key role in the energy transition. I learned a lot from your presentation, but perhaps just to highlight two important takeaways. First of all, the massive opportunities for natural gas in Nigeria in particular and in Africa in general. And the second thing, you also highlighted how versatile natural gas is as a fuel, because you can apply it into different areas. But that at the same time, it comes to my mind that actually it competes with every other fuel in each of its application. This is where we have to keep in mind not only what's happening with natural gas, but also what's happening with other fuels. However, this also raises an additional question, and that is perhaps something we can leave for the discussion, is that capital has to come from somewhere, and investment needs to be encouraged to take advantage of these various, the versatility of natural gas and all these opportunities that you highlighted. But investment will not be parachuted just because a country has resources. We need certain above ground ingredients that will make it attractive for investment to commit significant capital to make these projects a reality. So that's something hopefully we can discuss further. But let me move on now to our next speaker, Ms. Norbert Schialzug, who is the Chief Executive Officer from Eco City Projects Limited, and I look forward to hearing your views and your perspective on natural gas and whether it has any role to play in the energy transition, what's going on in Africa and elsewhere. Please, the floor is yours. Do we have Mr. Norbert with us?
Yes, thank you very much, Carol. Sorry, I was just trying to come online.
You have your video on? Okay, there you go. Okay.
Yes, it's on. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, SP Abuja, for having me. Thank you, Amina. Thank you for this opportunity. So I'm going to go very quickly through my slides. Very fantastic topic. The previous speakers have brought a lot of issues home. And so I'm sure we're going to have a very interesting Q&A session. So for me, I'm just going to go through some very important facts just to further buttress the importance of natural gas in this energy transition. Fact number one, the world is in transition, clearly. It was triggered from the 2015 convention signed by 96 countries. And by 2021, we've seen a lot of money now move from fossil fuels into the renewable space. The most important point to note here is the fact that as at 2050, it is estimated, based on all the energy transition models out there, that by 2050, natural gas will provide 30% of primary energy supply. Green and blue hydrogen, of course, will provide about 5%, which of course comes from natural gas. And so energy transition does not mean zero fossil fuels, but generally means in the future, we're going to see a shift towards more renewables. Fact number two, natural gas has very green potential. Number one, it emits less greenhouse gases than the other fossil fuels. Number two, carbon capture technology also provides you the opportunity to decarbonize natural gas. Of course, Carol, you have talked about the fact that hydrogen production has been going on for a long time. And yes, you basically converting natural gas to hydrogen through steam reforming and all that can give you gray hydrogen. And then when you add carbon capture to that, you basically turn it blue and you have blue hydrogen. And in the earlier side, you see that in the future, blue and green hydrogen, of course, with green hydrogen comes from utilization of electricity to synthesize hydrogen from water. And so this just shows you how much potential there is in decarbonizing natural gas and positioning it as a fuel for the new energy future. The third point on this slide is the fact that there's a breakthrough technology called a natural gas fuel cell. Just like you have the hydrogen fuel cell, you also have natural gas fuel cells, which interestingly emits near zero pollutants and has a very high efficiency in producing electricity. It's as high as 56%. So when it comes to helping to reduce tariff and improve affordability of electricity, I think this is an interesting technology that the engineers need to start looking at in their feasibility studies and begin to advise their clients. This is something that is a breakthrough technology already in use in the Western world. And fuel sector technology doesn't use combustion. It just works by chemical reaction and produces electricity and has no pollutants. So this is a very, very good means to decarbonize the natural gas value chain. The fourth and most important, recently I've been reading in the news, Maersk and many other massive marine transporters are converting their ships and building new ones to utilize methanol and LNG for transportation. And so this is one of the strategies that they are looking at to help contribute to their quota to reducing the carbon footprint of the industry. So methanol, of course, comes from natural gas synthesis, and LNG, of course, is natural gas liquefied to minus 260 degrees. And also this basically is one of the fuels that's being used to decarbonize marine transport. So these are very, very interesting developments in the market that traders and investors can begin to look at. Fact number 3, natural gas, Alessandra, I think, mentioned that, and Carol as well, is a bridge to the future. And for the reason for it being a bridge is, number one, oil is still important in providing the revenues that we need. Nigeria needs to drive its economy and pay its bills. And of course, so this is where crude oil still plays a very good role, right? But going forward, natural gas, which emits less emissions than oil and coal will provide that bridge because one, it is more proven and established. And so moving towards renewables would take a path of caution because one, most of the technology for renewables are still in development. And so, yes, the efficiency in solar has improved, efficiency of wind has improved, but of course, you have to look at the wind sites are limited. Carol mentioned earlier that whenever the winds stop blowing, they have to fire up their gas turbines. And this is the way it's going to be going forward. Gas has to remain the key supplier, the key source of energy, primary energy going forward into the future for various reasons. One, you need the sustainability. Two, the technology on which it's built is still proven, more proven than the renewables, which are an emerging market. And so it will still play a significant role pending when we get to 2050 and move to renewables completely. Fact number 4, Nigeria, we have been enjoying oil for a long time, but Nigeria has been a gas nation all the while, and we're only just discovering. Nigeria has over 200 TCF, but we have over 600 TCF in probable gas reserves. And what this means is basically energy security for the future. And so you can see the picture there of, I try to put a picture there to show you what the potential is in terms of the gas market for Nigeria. The government is rolling out the gas vehicle scheme, which is under the National Gas Expansion Program to convert vehicles to utilize gas. That alone has a potential to drive the market to about 2 billion cubic feet of gas per day. Also, the program is also helping to transition Nigerian homes from firewood and kerosene to LPG. When that happens, you're looking at over 6.5 million tons potential demand. And by 2050, we're going to have about over 68 million homes in Nigeria. We're also going to have over 400 million people. So you can imagine in terms of energy demand, and this is a major task for the industry. This is a major task for the government to be able to provide a source of sustainable energy for this growing population. Number 5, Alejandro has mentioned, and also Carol, the issue of affordability. For us to be able to participate and be able to match the great potential that we have in our gas resource to this emerging market, we need to address the issue of accessibility, affordability, and all of this can only work if we're able to find the financing to put in place all of infrastructure required to provide gas to Nigerians. Number 1, the homes need cylinders. Number 2, the vehicle owners need money to be able to convert their vehicles to use gas. And you know, for now, the economy has not been kind to everybody. And so it's going to be a major challenge, but that is something that the government is trying to address. In the current Petroleum Industry Act, the government has set up what we call the Midstream and Downstream Infrastructure Fund to provide funding to de-risk investment for private sector going into provision of infrastructure. And so this is this will go a long way in helping to provide the infrastructure that will enable Africans transition into this space. Last but not the least, this is just a fact I want to put out there that a lot of Africans still use firewood. And yes, we're talking about emissions from natural gas combustion. We're also talking about emissions from crude oil and coal burning and all of that. But one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gas also is deforestation. And in a recent study that was done by the Clean Cooking Alliance, about 80% of rural homes still utilize firewood. And the national average is about 56%. So this is a major issue. But of course, again, affordability is also something that we need to look into if we need to go into these rural areas to be able to transition them from what they're used to, which is very easy and cheap for them, to what we think would drive the nation towards this new energy future. So these are all the points I want to share. I'll just wait for the Q&A session to be able to share more perspective on this fantastic topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Norbert, for a very insightful perspective from the gas man himself. And thank you for those facts that you shared. I would call them meat busters, some of them, you know, and there's so much opportunity and a huge potential from gas. I think we'll take up more in the Q&A session, and I would like to call on Engineer Justice Derefaka to give us his own lecture, please. Yeah, so Engineer Justice is the technical advisor, gas business and policy implementation to the Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Resources. He's a marine engineering graduate from River State University, Port Harcourt. He's currently the technical advisor, like I mentioned earlier, and in this role, he drives the national gas policy implementation built on policy goals of the federal government of Nigeria. He's known as the gas man as well, and he doubles as the program manager for the Nigeria Gas Flare Commercialization Program in the Office of the Honorable Ministry of Petroleum Resources. He is a member of, he also drives and provides statutory regulatory compliance on environment and environmental expertise to SNEPCO and some other. This was while he was in his role in SNEPCO. We would like to call on Engineer Justice to give us his excellent perspective, being a veteran in the gas space. Thank you very much. Engineer Justice, the stage is yours, please.
All right, thank you. I don't know if you can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Amina, the section chairperson, and thank you, SP Abuja. Again, it's good to be back again to have this discussion with you. And Madam Amina, please, next time if you want me to have my job, don't put me and my Oga Chike to be as panelists. Please make him a keynote speaker or a panelist and make me your moderator, because I still love my job. Thank you very much. So Oga Chike and of course Norbert, my friend, good to share the platform with you once again. So I'll quickly talk through this huge question: is gas a key resource for green energy transition? And I've listened to the previous speakers, well elucidated, and I'll share my perspective. Again, looking at it from the position where I sit in the office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. So the question is asked: is it a key resource for green energy? So what I normally like to do, the reason is behind perhaps people asking this question because there is energy poverty, which is a reality for billions every day. Of course, we have the issue of carbon-intensive energy usage, which is damaging our environment and potentially changing our climate. Plus, our cities are becoming unbearable due to outdoor pollution. So we're looking at that good energy, that affordable and reliable and cheap energy that we can use, not forgetting our homes are not much better with the kind of energy sources that we use. So plus, I hear other speakers talk about urbanization is accelerating. We know that it's been said that in 2017, Nigeria became the 7th most populous country in the world, and it's been projected by 2050 when we'll surpass the 9.7, 9.5 or 10 billion mark, Nigeria will be the 3rd most populous country in the world. So what that means in terms of energy poverty, what are we doing to address it? And then we equally have the issue of deforestation. How do we stop all of this from happening with the use of natural gas? And don't forget, Africa is still in darkness. Of the 750-something million people that do not have access to electricity, half of that number comes from the sub-Saharan Africa where you and I are from. And they said Nigeria are the 2nd worst country for electricity. But things are improving, things are beginning to take shape, and there is hope that these things will begin to come out clean for us to have that desired energy that we have. And again, the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals equally captured the number 7 goal, said affordable and clean energy. Now, 1 in every 8 people do not have access to electricity. Maybe that number, it could be 1 in every 9 person as it were, but this is what we have as at today. And looking at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations came up with, the Petroleum Industry Act 2021, the Nigerian Gas Flare Commercialization Program, the Nigerian Gas Expansion Program, and the latest BABY, the Decade of Gas Initiative, all of them tick 16 of the 17 UN SDG boxes. And this will stimulate action over the coming years in 5 areas of critical importance to the SDGs: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and of course, partnership, which is why my boss, the Reverend Subsidy, did mention at an event recently that the PIA 2021 will undoubtedly support the global endeavor to alleviate energy poverty as envisioned in the UN's SDG number 7. Now, if you look at what the SDG has achieved so far since 2010 and what we have today, prior now in 2010, there were about 1.2 billion people that don't have access to electricity. As of 2019, that number has come down to 759. Africa has about 580 something of that number. So the energy poverty in Africa and indeed in Nigeria is huge, and which is why the issue about gas coming to play that key role is non-negotiable. So let's try to answer the question: is natural gas a key resource for green energy transition, like you have asked? But before then, I'd like to mention 4 mega trends that are shaping the energy industry, which has to do with demographic and social changes, shift in economic power and rapid urbanizations, technological and digital breakthroughs, very, very important. Matter of fact, without technology and digital breakthroughs, all of the things that we'll discuss today will be nothing. And then we equally have the resource scarcity and climate change, which is now putting us into that shape. But again, the industry will play its role in a way that is commercially competitive, as well as environmentally and socially responsible in oil and gas, as well as in low carbon and renewable energy resources. You can see that most oil companies now are beginning to change their name from oil and gas to energy or energies. So for just to give us an overview so that we don't mix what is renewable energy, what is green energy, like your question did mention, this is what this slide is all about. So green energy is a subset of renewable energy, and the key with these energy sources are that they do not harm the environment through factors such as raising greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Now, in order to be deemed green energy, a resource cannot produce pollution, such as is found with fossil fuels. And this means that not all sources used by the renewable energy industry are green. And I will speak to that much later. So while most green energy sources are also renewable, not all renewable energy sources are considered entirely green. Now, if you look at what renewable energy is all about, while renewable energy systems use natural resources as fuel, they can still affect the environment. For example, we know of the hydropower. They can have an environmental impact due to its land use, impact on marine life, and of course, deforestation, like the picture I showed you prior now. So green energy transition is important, yes, and this is derived from natural resources. Green energy is also often renewable and clean. Now, one thing I like to point out here, ladies and gentlemen, is that green and or, if you like, interchangeably, renewable renewable energy does not have the capacity to replace fossil fuels now and perhaps in the near future, as it will require varied production from different means to achieve this. So let's be clear and sure that right now, up until the 2050 or 2060, you will still need natural gas, you will still need fossil fuels, and that, which is why even the developed countries, like 3 weeks ago, I think the moderator did mention, like 2 weeks ago during COP26, UK and some other countries were short of gas, and they started to fire their coal plants. And these are the countries that were saying, Africans' gas projects shouldn't be funded. Fossil fuel projects should be funded. So, ladies and gentlemen, the share of renewable in global electricity generation jumped to 29% in 2020, up from 27%. My question to you is, where would the remaining 71% energy come from? Fossil fuel. So it clearly tells us that natural gas can assist green energy and renewable technologies and replace more polluting fossil fuels like coal, which is why we say natural gas is the closest ally to renewables. Now, the other thing I want to discuss quickly is why did SPA Abuja and their collaboration partner, Cypher Crescent, want us to discuss gas as a key resource for green energy? It's simple. Now we know that providing more energy presently to people while reducing our impact on the planet, which is climate change, is one of the greatest challenges we have. Like I did mention about renewables, the promise is there, but it cannot provide the world's energy need. 71%, where would that come from? So renewables such as solar and wind power are also intermittent. And I think one or two speakers have alluded to that, requiring sufficient backup to ensure reliable electricity supply when there is limited sun or wind. So this suggests that hydrocarbons will continue to play an important role for decades to come. Natural gas is one of the few energy sources that can be used across all sectors of the global economy. And that is why, as a nation, the federal government declared 2021 to 2030 as a decade of gas development for Nigeria. After we declared 2020 as a year of gas, we achieved some landmarks, and we said there is so much work to do. And now we're going to have to come up with a roadmap. So gas also supports an increasing role for renewables. And this will be important as the use of electricity expands. So the other thing I'd like to mention again, with regards to is natural gas a key resource, is that gas is also a reliable partner for renewable energy sources, providing critical support for wind, solar, and hydroelectricity by helping to match supply and demand. Natural gas emits between 45 to 55%, yes, which is lower greenhouse gas emissions than coal when used to generate electricity, according to the International Energy Agency. Natural gas supports renewables because it can quickly compensate for dips in solar or wind power supply and rapidly respond to sudden increases in demand. Natural gas, ladies and gentlemen, is a good partner for hydropower, providing secure electricity supply when there is insufficient rainfall. So, which is why in my opening statement I said, renewables, green energy, they are intermittent. So when you don't have those, and it's location specific, there are some areas you have so much sun, there are some areas you have so much rain. When those are not happening as at the time they want them to happen, what happens? Which is where gas steps in. And that's why in developed countries, highly efficient distributed gas-fired combined heat and power systems will help to reduce greenhouse gases. In developed countries like Nigeria, natural gas will replace wood and coal in heating and cooking, helping to improve health conditions. So it's not a question of choosing fossil fuels or renewables. Both are vital, don't get me wrong, to meet demand in the coming decades. But the big challenge for our society is how to provide much more energy with much less CO2. Hence, the deployment of natural gas as a bridge fuel and a key resource for green energy transition. So if you look at this slide, the answer to your question, SP, and your collaborative partner, Sabah Crescent, the answer is yes. Natural gas is a key resource for green energy transition, and it has all the credentials to support the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. It's a vast resource, it's affordable, it's clean and environment friendly, it's flexible, it's versatile, and again, with countries like ours, like Nigeria, if you see what we have in terms of infrastructural deficit, gas can be delivered to areas that are far off from gas pipelines. And like during the design of the Nigerian gas-fired commercialization program, what we found out is that, okay, there is a lacuna in terms of infrastructure. And then we found out that, yes, even the pipeline is the most preferred option for transporting gas. We found out that there were scalable, skid-mounted, plug-and-play, batch-type CNG kind of technologies that you can take gas to the doorstep of industries, as it were. And that has equally yielded good dividends. So benefits of natural gas are huge. Components of gas are used to make fertilizer, helping to feed billions of people. Again, partnering with renewables. Natural gas supports renewables by quickly compensating dips, which I've said earlier on. Again, tackling emissions. So you can see that gas in its entirety, across its entire value chain, supports the climate change drive, environmental footprint, and of course, well, I've talked about this, how we take it to our customers. And then in terms of LNG for transport, gas is a cleaner alternative to conventional fuels that the LNG industry has been working. Now, the carbon capture and storage issue is essential for the deep decarbonization of the heavy industry that we have. And this technology, again, like we have like 2 months ago with the Office of the Vice President, to begin to see how we can deploy CCUS into the our polity. All of these are beginning to take shape. So in rounding up, I'll just quickly take a look at what federal government policy initiatives are for the gas sector. So now, yes, gas is a key resource for the green energy transition. Yes, we have seen the credentials of gas playing a key role up until 2050 and beyond, when renewables will begin to have footings to stand very well. So what is government doing in that regard? And government initiatives are very clear. Like Mr. President did mention, that the rising global demand for cleaner energy sources has offered Nigeria an opportunity to exploit gas resources for the good of the country. And we intend to seize this opportunity. So you can see that Mr. President's key drive, this major objective is to make sure that we industrialize our nation with gas playing a major role. And we must deal with the energy poverty I did mention in my opening presentation, like the President has alluded to, and take millions of people out of energy poverty. Now, when we take people out of energy poverty in addressing SDG number 7, we are invariably addressing SDG 13, which talks about climate change, and SDG number 1, which talks about poverty. Now, poverty, if you don't have electricity, if you don't have energy, like the UN says, energy is everything. If you don't have energy to run industries, to employ people, to run small-scale businesses, poverty will be, of course, will be huge in our system. So, looking at again your question about gas as a key resource for green energy transition, my boss, federal government, has said we reject the concept of single pathway. So we are in alignment with a just transitional pathway, and this gives us these are our guiding philosophies towards that just energy transition pathway, as you can see. So it starts around responsible transition, a sustainable transition, a prosperous transition, a collaborative transition, and ladies and gentlemen, an inclusive transition. So all of us need to come on board. Looking at all of these things, the federal government in its wisdom in 2017 now launched and approved the national gas policy to move us as a nation to be an attractive gas-based industrial nation with a significant presence in national and international market. So you can see in all ramifications, government efforts towards positioning gas in that light, which equally addresses your question. So we have programs, policies, and regulations in place to address all of this. The National Gas Expansion Program, like my friend Norbert did mention, is in place. The National Gas Policy, like I talked about, the Flare Gas Regulations 2018 under the Nigerian Gas Flare Commercialization Program is another key program. And now the Nigeria's Petroleum Industry Act has come to play a key role that has codified most of the challenges in the gas sector, that going forward, gas will begin to have that needed attention. And which is why the Petroleum Industry Act, ladies and gentlemen, in case I'm running out of my time, I would like to stop here. The Nigerian Gas Flare Commercialization, the National Gas Expansion Program, and indeed the Decade of Gas Initiative, all combined offer a unique opportunity, unlocking all gas molecules, or let me say, the intention to unlock all gas molecules as a favorable combination of solutions to Nigerians' energy poverty. So very quickly, let me rush through. 2020 year of gas, vis-a-vis 2021 to 2030 decade of gas. What does that really mean? So the federal government, like I said, will declare this, the 2021 to 2030 as the decade of gas. And what this means is that
you have 1 minute to go.
Oh, very good. I'm almost done. So the decade of gas is a decade of elimination of gas flaring, a decade of more domestic liquefied petroleum gas, and a decade of fully gas-powered economy. Now, in rounding up, the decade of gas is a decade of opportunity, wealth creation, and in rounding up, ladies and gentlemen, by 2050, global energy demand will be this. So the abundance of natural gas in Nigeria indicates the suitability of natural gas as a key energy resource for the transition toward short and medium-term sustainable green renewable energy transition. And so I will leave you with this. Nigeria will eradicate widespread energy poverty, grow and diversify our economy, and pave the way for a just energy transition through the use of natural gas resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Justice. Always very passionate about anything gas. Thank you for sharing your perspectives, for running us through all the initiatives government has put in place for the gas transition and declaring we're in the decade of gas, and we see that there are a lot of things going on around the gas thing. Of course, it's finding a fine balance between providing energy for everyone and also being responsible to the environment. We will still give you an opportunity to share more perspective during the Q&A session. Thank you very much for all those wonderful and insightful comments. I would like to next call Engineer Afolabi to give us his own perspectives on the topic. Engineer Afolabi is the Managing Director of Seplas West Limited, and he plays a key role, his current role as the MD, of course. I can't see the slide, can you? Okay. Yeah, so Engineer Afolabi is the current Managing Director, Seplat West Limited of Seplat Energy PLC, which is a premium indigenous oil and gas company with a robust and diverse asset base spanning the eastern and western hub of the Niger Delta. Well, we all know Seplat. Seplat is like the IOC of the indigenous companies, and they've done so well. They've grown into a very big company. So would want and they are well known for gas. Of course, in fact they had the foresight long ago to see that gas was the in thing. So would like to hear from Mr. Afolabi, Engineer Afolabi himself, about the Seplat's journey to gas. Thank you. Engineer Afolabi, please.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all the panelists. I'm very sure you are all convinced now. And there's nobody who's confused at this point. There is very little I will say again from after hearing from Alessandro, hearing from Norbert, and of course, Engineer Justice, and also my mentor, Chike, also said so much with all the data analyzed there. So, but I'll just run through the slide in case there are people who are still in doubt of the value of gas as the transition fuel. So from the data there, it is clear that if global warming is not a global issue, Africa will not even bother, Nigeria should not even bother about this, reducing carbon print, because our consumption in terms of emissions that we release is just about 1% of the global emissions. So why should we bother? So whether you bother or not, the impact is global. Currently, look at the carbon dioxide release in the atmosphere. It has continuously increased. Current value is about 414 ppm, but the maximum limit that was set at 450, meaning that despite all the agitation and very the increase in production and of course
Hello, SP Abuja. Is there an audio problem?
Engineer Afolabi, I think you have to check your network or your connection.
Yes,
it's from his end.
Yeah.
Sir, is there any way we could assist you? We are not hearing you. Probably you can log out and log in again. We can't hear you, sir. Very distinguished participants, thank you for your patience. He will join you shortly and we'll continue with the remarks by Engineer Ofolabi, Managing Director of Seplat West Limited. Thank you for your patience.
SP IT team, can you take him out and invite him in again to see what goes on?
Yeah, he just left and came in again. So I don't know if it's his device that has an issue. Probably he should jump on that device.
Okay, can someone call him? Let him just log on with his phone and just talk through his slides. Let him log on with his phone and talk through his slides.
Okay, let me join through the phone.
Excellent. Okay, Engineer Falabi, I didn't know you can hear me. So if you join through the phone and then speak to your slide, we'll be seeing you. We'll be seeing your video.
Okay.
And then you can change your slides. Yes.
But are you hearing me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know whether they're hearing you. I think you can start. I can hear you clearly.
We're hearing you now. Please go on.
Yes, we can. I can hear him too.
Okay. So Engineer Falabi, you can go ahead. So we have you now.
Okay.
I have cleared all the debris for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So I'll just be fast about it. I know time is gone. But one thing is clear that we all agree with is that gas is not a renewable energy, isn't it? That is known. And the fact that gas is far better, the energy from gas is better than coal and oil. Everybody agree with that. And it's also agree with all of us that there is abundance of gas and abundance of fossil fuel than any of the renewable energy you can think of. And the fact that renewable energy are dependent on the source. For example, the solar depend on sun. When the sun is not very high, then you have limited amount of energy required. Hydro depends on water and rain. When the rain is low, then you have challenges with that. And also the wind also depend on the wind availability. So the vane will not be efficient if there is no enough wind, which means that definitely before we get to a level where technology is sufficient to give us a sustainable energy, we need to have a transition part. That transition part is what Seplat has understood since 2014. And that's why at that point, we decided to expand our gas capacity from barely ordinary 30 million to as high as 500 million score of capacity. So which simply means that if you follow us, by middle of next year, we'll be around 700 million plus processing capacity. Currently, we can deliver up to 400 million scope of gas, and we are doing about 1/3 of the domestic gas need in the country. And we drive our energy transition not only by words, and as you can see, we changed our name from ordinary Seplat Petroleum to Seplat Energy, just to change the culture as it is. Everybody begin to have the same view and the same opinion about what is the world demands and how can we get there. So we have come to understand that definitely oil has come to stay. It won't go just like that. And there are some data supported by true fact that you will see that basically support the fact that oil will still be relevant even after 2050 that we are talking about, especially in Africa and Nigeria in particular. And of course, gas will remain a transition fuel for provision of especially electricity and heating medium across the globe, especially Africa and Nigeria. Carbon neutrality is a focus, but it's a journey that all of us need to keep an eye on. So I think the major challenge with people who challenge the fact that gas should be a transition element is the fact that there is an element, there's something they call a crowd out effect. That if we begin to focus too much on gas as a transition fuel gas, you will get to a point where you begin to take all the investments, you should probably invest all the money you should actually invest in renewable energy and begin to move everything back to the fossil fuel investment and infrastructure. And because the gas infrastructure and the other fossil fuel infrastructure are quite capital intensive, so the renewable energy will receive lesser attention. Actually, that's one of the fears. And actually to manage their affairs, to have a good policy in place and completely enforce that policy that will ensure that people not only develop their fossil fuel, but they also make a conscious effort to develop all the renewable energy that will support a good livelihood for all of us on planet Earth. I think that's one thing that needs to be addressed. And I know that Nigeria is in a trend to ensure that is actually done, as explained by Engineer Justice. And as we collectively do our own part, I'm sure all these dreams eventually come to pass. I may go beyond 2050 for Africa, but eventually we will get there and we will become more better in life as humanity. This is basically to show that in Seplat, we not only say it, we actually capture all our emissions, including the fugitive emission. And we have a clear roadmap that in the next 3 years, we only have a pilot flare within our facility. So it's not just that we have the aspiration on the roadmap, we have everything in place, including the project that we have to be executed to ensure that all these demands, desires are actually accomplished within the expected time. Yes, renewable has come to stay and it will save a lot of life. But what is obvious, even at 2040 from this graph, there's going to be 400 increase in demand for renewable and growth in terms of growth. But nevertheless, look at the percentage. It's still far, far below what gas and other fossil fuel will be offering the world. So definitely, all these other support transition fuel will still be needed by the world and especially by Africa and Nigeria as a whole. So just to also support the fact that our growth has been geometric and the rate at which renewable is growing, there is no way it can match up with our energy demand. So whichever way, we still need to ensure that we develop all the resources within the country and ensure we get the best for our nation and also the world in general. Definitely, renewable energy have opportunity to replace fossil fuel like diesel and also coal, as you can see. Solar system is actually cheaper than diesel, and definitely people will eventually migrate at a very high rate from all this standby diesel generator to solar panel system as year goes on. And from now to around 2029, there may not be a significant decrease, but as we begin to move from 2029, there will be a significant takeover by solar system from diesel, as forecasted by the McKinsey group. So it's just showing the price comparison between the solar system and diesel system. The government is not left behind. They have a clear policy that shows that gas is a transition energy system source. And therefore, they have all these incentives to ensure that you actually develop your gas and get value for the country. This is basically to show that the industrial demand will begin to increase geometrically, and you also have, opportunity market to actually sell the gas, and LPG is one of the major areas where we also need to focus and ensure that all the gas from the natural gas processing are captured, and the flare value is also reduced significantly. As you can see from this bubble chart, that the LPG demand is going to move from 1 million to over 7 million within the shortest time, as explained here. So it means that natural gas is actually a transition fuel, and it's the best of all the transition fuel you can imagine, and it has come to stay. And the truth is there is no even alternative for Africa in terms of all this transition related energy source. But the last one is that what are you going to do about it? I mean, we can say about all the big companies, but individual, we need to also decide what are we going to do to ensure that environment is clean and we all live a better life as a whole. In the choice of your car, which one do you want to take? Is it diesel with a high level of emission? Is it petrol or gasoline? Is it an hybrid? Is it a gas or an electric? Whichever one will release the least emission should be our choice at this point if we are going to help the environment actually develop. What about your cooking method? We need to take a conscious moment to go and educate the people in the rural area, the adverse effect of burning the bush and also of using wood to cook, because those are the things that are within our control that we can manage as individuals. Of course, when you're building your house and you're buying houses, how do you encourage the agent to interlock everywhere or to build grasses or to plant plants? We can also take a conscious decision as individual, as company, to plant 1 million plants like Steplat is going to do, or individually plant 10 and ensure that you also increase the number of trees that are going to be consuming the amount of carbon dioxide currently in our atmosphere. So we need to collectively decide that we're going to reduce carbon prints and be an ambassador of a sustainable environment for ourselves. Thank you, and God bless.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's been a wonderful session. Once again, Aneka Nundo from Cypher Crescent. So it's been a pleasure for all of us back at Cypher Crescent and SPE to witness a very cerebral discussion on the question if gas is actually a reliable bridge energy as we migrate into the world of the renewables. And as you could see consciously, I think my background there has to be green because we at Cypher Crescent and SPE, we are fully in support of a cleaner and a greener energy. But as it would go, like asked by Alessandro Tiani, he said, I think it was not a question, that was his submission, where he said, yeah, he also supports the transition to a cleaner environment, but he asked a question, or he made a statement. He said the transition has to be just. You know, the globe has to give a listening ear to the ambitions of emerging economies, so to say, the developing economies for their growth as we change the energy mix. That means he is fully in support or in acknowledgement of the fact that population growth is also a transition as we transit from our energy mix from cheap light fossil energy sources to that of renewable, population is also transiting. So what is funding, or sorry, what is powering, what is energizing the growing population? And we went further to listen to Engineer Chike Wosu. He said the world is struggling at the moment, or there is a growing demand for balance in energy supply, and at the same time, the call for balance in environmental protection, climate because of the climatic changes needs. He said Africa, if you look at it, he measured, he compared GDP of developing countries to that of developed countries, and he said there is a direct correlation between consumption of energy and GDP growth. So Africa GDP growth happened to be the least, meaning that Africa needs more energy at the moment to aspire to be to where the world is, to aspire to realize its own goals. And any transition that does not consider the ambitions of developing countries that they need to grow is not a just one. So he said, if you look at the African continent, he called it, some people call it the black continent. That means it needs to be lit. And for them, in Walter Smith, they are currently driving an energy to power, gas to power project, because they want to light the communities. They want to ensure that the Nigerian and other the Nigerian economy aspirations are met. And to him, I think it was a definite answer that gas is a very reliable, it's a rich energy source as we get into the peak of the renewables. So he also talked about solar. He talked about solar and hydro, and he mentioned what do they contribute? What percentage of the energy consumption of the world today comes from the renewables? He said, I think it's about 29, and the remaining 71 come from fossil fuels. He also recognized the fact that the carbon emissions from oil is huge, but we need to reduce that. And reducing that, the nearest alternative is gas, which commensurate reduced content in carbon emission. So on the third one, we also saw Nobel Shasuk. He's is a specialist and EcoCity principal partner. So he talked about what fascinated me the most is that this is already changing. For example, in the marine transportation, people are changing their machines, changing their vessels to that which supports methanol, and gasoline, methanol, and LNG energy to decarbonize the marine industries. And this is working, and these are all from natural gas. So that is to support that to him, and maybe his and also his company, that it's a yes, that gas is a very dependable and reliable source of energy in our energy transition journey. So we had our always electrifying Justice Derefake speaking right from the office, the highest office in terms of energy and petroleum resources in Nigeria. So he's telling us that this question has already been answered to the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the federal government of Nigeria. The answer is yes. Gas is reliable, is dependable, and he is telling us that Nigeria needs to fund its development. We need to fund our economy. I think I like the way he put it at the end. He said you need justice. As he said, you need to take away poverty of energy, which is the mother of all poverties, especially to developing countries. And for you to do this, you need to be very, very strategic in getting to an energy source that can guarantee you continuous supply of energy to fund the economic activities of the country. So from then we get to Mr. Afolabi of Seplat Energy, and I like the way he ended. He ended by even challenging us as individuals. We all yearn for a greener society. Then as we build our houses, as we buy our cars, what choices do we make? Do you go for purely diesel engine, a gasoline, a hybrid, or electricity? As you build your houses, you have all interlocked, or you leave some places for greens and the trees. So he talked about the energy, the infrastructure that is needed to convert the energy from the renewables. Today, to sustain the energy demand of the world. And because it is capital intensive, there is a need for the globe to take a stepwise transition so that some parts of the global population would not be extinct. So I think from all our contributors and discussants so far, I think it was 100% yes that gas is a dependable, reliable, especially for the continent of Africa, for the country of Nigeria, source of energy as the world navigates towards a successful energy transition. And we headed for us to have a successful energy transition that is global. It has to be all-inclusive. No part of the world should be left out. No aspiration should be taken for granted. Everything has to be taken care of. So having said that, I think we may have had, I'm sure we have a lot of comments and probably some questions to the discussants. So we are going to look at some of the questions and we distribute it so that the contributors, the panelists will continue to elucidate on the very important topic of the day about energy transition and the role of gas, which from all the discussants, I think it is emphatic that yes, for Nigeria, for Africa, and even to the rest of the world, as seen recently when maybe in some part of the world, people were struggling for gas, looking for gas, there was shortage in gas supply for them to power their domestic houses. So we go straight to the Q&A session.
So while we are about to switch to the Q&A, we would like to please request that all speakers kindly turn on their video so that we can leave you on the screen, and then the moderator and Udo continues. Speakers, please, we'd like to see your videos. Thank you.
Please turn on your video. Yeah, interestingly, I think almost all our listeners seem to have been in concurrence with the speakers. I'm seeing comments, most of them supporting the positions of all the contributors. I think what I saw first as a question is, okay, that is from Akombi. Akombi is asking, what is the role and or responsibility of students in the emerging energy transition? So I would like Mr. Chikenwosu to handle that question. He is a friend of the students as much as all of us.
Thank you very much. I was going to offer myself even if I had not been offered. Okay, so thanks. First of all, I'd like to thank all the discussants, Justice, Norbert, Alessandro, and Afolabi. I think Carol has left for doing a brilliant job. Justice, next time you're going to be keynote speaker. You just have so wide a perspective on these subjects. Yeah. So, and you're very welcome. Let me, first of all, you know how passionate I am about the young and, their growth. And it's important to note that just outside my office, while I was doing this, I have about 12 young people who were grooming in different aspects of the upstream oil and gas business. But I also encourage them that in their own generation, there'll be a tension between fossil fuels, upstream oil and gas, and the transition to renewables. So they need to understand both. So our gas and power business, our gas and power commercial business has a part of it that helps to develop young people along the lines of not only, you see, it's called gas, power, and commercials. So the power part is about the mix. We call it PV plus gas, and PV referring to solar PV. So young people that come to join us have to first learn about the upstream oil and gas business and then start learning about the transition in that order, because I think that's the order the transition is going to happen. It is important that SPE, so I'm going beyond Watersmith now, SPE also imbibes this transition. We've heard about several companies becoming something energy or something energy. The Society of Petroleum Engineers is also thinking about, I understand, becoming the Society of Energy Engineers. Now, that means that we have to create a platform for the next generation of young people to understand that they will be the ones driving this transition and provide them the developmental opportunities that SP is so good at, for them not only to learn about oil, gas as a transition fuel, but also about the entire renewable space. That is where I think the effort for the next decade, if you ask me, of SPE should be. It's educating young people and giving them the necessary tools to support them in the transition. Thank you, Anyeka.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chikenwosu. Always very clear in questions like this, and you have demonstrated over time, I think, your eagerness to ensure that the young people grow in their knowledge and participation in activities of the oil and gas industry. Thank you very much once again. So the next question, how does Nigeria manage the rather contradictory situation of transiting renewables while increasing the need to consume more of its fossil fuels to ensure GDP growth? I would like Mr. Justice, the referee, to handle that question. Mr. Justice. Hello, Justice. Okay, in the absence of Mr. Justice, Mr. Norbert, who has been also pioneering a lot of projects in the ecosystem of energy transition and cleaner society or cleaner environment, can handle that. Nigeria needs to grow her GDP, and there is a burning question and a burden on energy transition. And at the same time, there is a need to fund the developmental goals of Nigeria. So how do we balance that from the available source of fossil energy?
Okay, so that is a very tricky question. Number one, Nigeria, as you know, is an oil-dependent nation. 90% of our income, over the years has come from oil revenues. And so transitioning for us is going to be tricky because, one, we need to sustain our economy, especially knowing that if you see recently, our Naira has devalued. It's simply because our influx of the dollar has reduced. And so for us, we need to find a sustainable way of sustaining our income as a nation. And that offers itself in the form of gas. We need to export gas to be able to replace the oil revenues, number one. We also need to find a very ingenious way to be able to develop the local gas market, because there's a huge potential for utilizing this market locally to be able to find a cheap and affordable means of fueling our homes and our economy with natural gas. Of course, every home has a generator now in Nigeria, right? That is not sustainable. Also, every rural home now uses firewood and so on. And so the challenge is not just in ensuring that we sustain our revenues from oil and replacing it over time with gas, but also in developing the local gas market, because in the local gas market, you create jobs, number one, and then you develop the local industry, because if you're able to take gas to the right market, especially in those industrial layouts, you'll be able to have more industries come in, and that will bring about jobs. And when you create jobs, basically the economy grows. And so this, for me, is how the transition has to go, to gas, and then it has to be export gas, and then also local markets being developed through provision of infrastructure and also creation of those industrial hubs where gas will be made available for power generation and for driving industrial growth. That creates jobs and also drives our economy. I think that's, for me, it's what the way forward has to be.
Thank you very much. Yeah, somebody asked the carbon emission from the renewables is quite considerably very low compared to fossil energy, but the rest of the world is expected to key into the renewables, but it is capital intensive. So what happens to the emerging companies and economies in the developing part of the world Is there any form of global arrangement to support the rest of the world to key into this? I would like Mr. Tiani Alessandro to attempt to handle that.
I don't think Alessandro is on. I think he is.
Alessandro is not on. Okay, Mr. Chikewosu, please, you try it again for us.
Okay, thank you very much. So very interesting conversation I had earlier today about what is known as the levelized cost of energy.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you what how I relate to the concept and how it connects to your question. Now, supposing I have $20,000, or let me talk naira. Suppose I have 10 million naira, and I want to use it to purchase a vehicle, and that vehicle will work on fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And I then, buy I know I can afford it, and I then buy the vehicle, but the cost of diesel or petrol to run the vehicle over what we consider the lifetime of that particular car, let's say 10 years, give or take with the Nigerian roads, might be less, but let's say 10 years. And I then check that initial capital I pay and the costs over time of operating and maintaining that vehicle.
Yeah.
If I was to go into the renewable space, that same vehicle would cost about 3 times as much. Let's just say, sometimes even higher. Now, I don't have that money. And then I'm promised that based on the levelized cost of energy, the cost of operating and maintaining the car will be much less over its life cycle, even considering the high initial cost. But I don't have the high initial cost. I have 10 million. So somebody has to offer me the additional 20 or more million, yeah, for me to be able to make that investment. And what is the person's gain from that? So what you see happening is that actually the world is gaining from the reduction in the carbon footprint. That is what is driving a lot of the subsidization of the transition to renewables. Okay, so there are a lot of the US Exim Bank is interested in supporting funding of that initial capital outlay, that massive initial capital outlay into transiting to renewables. That is the leverage that a lot of companies and African countries may be able to key into. I'm certain that there are many others. I think Engineer Justice would be able to do more justice, forget the pun, with respect to what these sources of subsidized funds are to encourage. The federal government is doing that in quite a number of ways for gas, and the international communities are doing that for renewables. So yes, you're right. There is a massive hurdle to cross before you even start talking about levelized cost of energy, which is a long-term thing. The person must be able to afford, the support that they need to actually put in the basic infrastructure for renewables, which is very expensive. Okay, so that's the tension. Yeah, and the developed world must know that Africa cannot afford that initial cost. So, however much you tell us about the fact that life cycle costs are lower, let me speak in English. Life cycle now for person we get life now. We have many more things to contend with, and the initial hurdle we have to scale is so significant that somebody has to support Africa and the developing economies to do that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I think our time is fast spent, but we still very interesting questions are still there. Seplat's Energy showed us some glimpse of what they are doing in terms of infrastructure development to position for the future. So somebody asked a question. In the ongoing industrial revolution, the companies, especially the manufacturing industries and innovation industry, need to consume lots of power. And at the same time, they need to build infrastructure to do this. And at the same time, we need to build infrastructure for energy transition, including that of gas. How is this going to be achieved? So I think it's still about the cost of energy transition. We need to focus on building capacity infrastructure to consume current energy to power our industries. And at the same time, we need to be building infrastructure for energy transition. How are we going to achieve this? I think Seplat had already shown us a little of what they are doing. So Mr. Falabi, kindly help us in that direction. Hello, Engineer Falabi. I think it's out.
I think he's out.
Okay.
Nobody can answer. Nobody has a lot of solutions to that question.
Okay. Mr. Nobet, it's an interesting question. How do we fund infrastructure for energy transition alongside infrastructure for consumption for utilization of current energy for economic development to meet our sustainable development goals?
Okay. So I think Justice and his team at the ministry are doing a fantastic job already, right? So let me start by hailing, him and his team. They started the thing is, because the gap in terms of infrastructure is huge, right? You have over 40 million Nigerian homes, just about 13% to maybe 20%, depending on whether you're in a rural area or urban area, have access to LPG cylinders. Now, an LPG cylinder will cost you maybe 25,000 naira. Minimum wage in Nigeria is 30,000. So your cylinder is as expensive as your minimum wage in the country. So you can imagine the biggest barrier to energy access is access to the infrastructure. And just as Malgachike said, you have to first transition the people before you now talk about levelized costs and what the future benefit is. So that's the biggest barrier, the first initial cost of the equipment, right? So that's for gas, because in Africa, we have to talk about how we use energy. In the industrial nations, in the industrialized nations, they'll think of how to get massive amount of gas. You can see China now is buying gas even as expensive as $60 per million scuff. That's ridiculous, but they're still buying it because its industries are using it. In Africa, the homes are the biggest consumers of energy. When you have generators that consume diesel, people buying LPG to cook with, people, cutting down the trees to cook. So that is a basic problem we have to solve as Africa first. And the first thing is to know that Africans, majority, 60% of Africans live in the rural areas, right? And so, which is why you see Justice and his team came up with this fantastic idea, right? To provide cheap funds for provision of cooking gas cylinders and infrastructure for retail of gas and so on. And they're also rolling out, I don't know whether I'm allowed to announce it, but they are like the micro distribution centers that will make gas distribution centers available in rural areas. So financing has to start with government taking the first step to de-risk the value chain. When they de-risk it and create enough momentum, then private sector and private individuals can come in, because right now the gap is too wide and there's no bankable model to be able to finance the last mile. And so this is where the government comes in. And this is what Nigerian government is already doing, which is fantastic. And then the private sector is going to join them subsequently. I think so. That for me is a solution. And already Nigerian government is on that.
Thank you very much. That was very elucidating. One other interesting question here is attracting foreign direct investments for upstream oil and gas projects continues to be a challenge with the major funding walls moving away from fossil fuels. How can Africa and Nigeria ensure that funding is available for the mega gas projects needed to deliver the anticipated production levels for domestic and export purposes in the decade of gas? Mr. Justice Derafaka. So this question supposes that Nigeria gets a lot of funding, foreign direct investments to power its fossil energy projects. Now that the rest of the world is beginning to look at this as obsolete, how do we ensure continuous funding and support of our mega gas projects in our decade of gas?
All right, thank you very much. I think I'll just make it very simple and crisp. Yes, the issues were raised that developed countries should stop funding fossil fuel projects, including gas projects. And the whole world woke up to them and were like, what's going on? This is more like energy colonialism, in quote, if I'm allowed to call that. These developed countries came into Africa, build infrastructure to take our natural resources to their country. And now we have the opportunity to take our people from that energy and, of course, abject poverty. And then they want to stop it. Now, the moral hazard around that is when they're trying to stop us from using natural gas, when they have shortages with natural gas, they fire up their coal plants. And then you begin to ask the question, why are these guys talking on both sides of their mouths? And so to answer your question, my boss did mention a different forum. He has said it, and I want to repeat him word for word. The Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Resources, SLD Chief Priscilla, had said, with the signals we're getting from our developed country partners and brothers and sisters, it is time for Africa to set up its own energy bank. Yes, we have the African Development Bank. We have other regional banks and all the rest. It is time for us to set up our own bank to deal with our own issues. And I'll tell you why this is possible and it's doable. Look at when COVID-19 hit us last year. Most of the things we did it within the confines of our regional boundaries. When the expatriates took off, Nigerians were running our oil and gas operations. So in its entirety, ladies and gentlemen, to answer your question, it is time for Africans to look inwards and for us to begin to address our issues. And we can. And the good thing again is that there is now a clash amongst themselves over there to say, hello, no, I don't agree with we stopping fossil fuel projects, especially natural gas in Africa. Morgan Stanley has come up to say they will look at it on a need basis. So it's not all gloom and doom, but it's a clear call for we Africans, and in particular Nigerians, for us to begin to look inwards. And for me, I would like to push this back to our banks in country. Nigerian banks should begin to try to bite the bullet and begin to fund oil and gas projects. And like my mentor, Oga Chike, did mention, the oil and gas space, and in particular the gas space, has humongous, to use my 11 years old daughter's words, humongous opportunities for everybody across the broad spectrum. Thank you.
That was awesome. Very interesting point. We head off energy colonialism. We head off, probably running away from high carbon emission to higher carbon emission, meaning that it is a call for the whole world to look back at the concept of energy transition. It has to be just, it has to be inclusive, it has to be all-encompassing, it has to be intelligent, it has to create path, it has to take care of the transiting population of the world. There has to be life before we talk about livelihood. So thank you very much. I think we may wish to call it a day in terms of the Q&A session at this point. I'm sure there's several questions still there to be attended to. The organizers will sum it up and send across to all the panelists. I'm sure everybody will make an attempt to answer it correctly and in the most satisfactory manner and distribute to everybody that was logged on here. So from me, thank you to everybody who has taken time to put up a question, one or two, and to all our discussants and panelists. I think they've done justice to all the questions, and that couldn't have been it couldn't have been otherwise with justice on the table too. So thank you very much. I hand it over to our Abuja office.
Thank you so much to the amazing, phenomenal Director of Business Development of Cypher Crescent Limited. That was an amazing moderation. Thank you so much for taking over from the main moderator who, due to some other exigencies, left the meeting. Thank you so much, sir. That was an amazing moderation. Very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We have spent so much time and we'll be running up the event. We have about 42 participants still online. Thank you for still waiting till this moment. We'd like to give you a current call to join the Society of Petroleum Engineers Abuja section. You can be a professional member or a student member. Of course, if you want to join, you have just a few ways to join. Either you send us a mail at spabujasektioninfo@gmail.com or to our membership chair at ek.okafor15@gmail.com. There are so many benefits of being a professional or a student member of the SP Abuja section. Discounted event registration, special pricing on books and subscriptions, discount on SP papers in the One Petro Library, subscription on Journal of the Petroleum Technology, attending NICE, OLEF, and so many other conferences, and of course, being part of this kind of technical session. Now we are available on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course, Instagram. For our international audience outside Nigeria, we are also on Twitter. So kindly follow us on all of our social media platforms for the best of knowledge. At this juncture, we would like to run up this event with a closing remark by our program chair, the program chair of SP Abuja section. This juncture, we love to most respectfully call Victor Anoche for his remark. Okay, Victor, the stage is yours, sir, for closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Akban. Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. So far, it's been an interesting session, and all the panelists and the participants have all agreed that gas is a key resource for green energy. And I'm so excited that Nigeria has huge gas reserve, and this reserve is capable of solving our energy challenges and transforming our economy. So on behalf of our SP Abuja chairman, Mrs. Amina Damadami, and the board members and every member of SP Abuja session, I want to say a big thank you to our speakers for creating the chance to speak on this important topic. So I want to thank Mr. Alessandro for joining us. Also, Mr. Chike Nwosu, our own SP Nigerian Council Build team member, for always supporting SP activities. I would also like to thank Engineer Justice for always being available for SP Abuja session. To Mr. Norbert, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. And to Engineer Afolabi, thank you also for joining us. Special thanks to Dr. Caro for accepting our invitation and for doing a good job, for moderating. And we also want to thank Cypher Crescent and Mr. Tangod Egbe for making this event possible. They've been so supportive to SP Abuja session. And finally, I want to thank everyone for joining. And I want all of us to know that SP Abuja will keep organizing interesting programs. Thank you very much, Akbar.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, very distinguished participants, speakers, and everybody that joined. We've come to the end of this event. But before we go, please, a quick photo session. So please, we'd love to request that everybody here kindly turn on your photo. Let's have a quick photo session. Thank you. A quick photo session, all of the speakers. Of course, Victor Anoche, we see you, sir. Engineer Chike Nwosu, the mentor to everybody, the great grand mentor, even to me, sir. I celebrate you, sir. Engineer Justice, thank you, thank you.
In fact, I wanted to quarrel with Justice when he kept claiming Engineer Mr. Chike, my mentor. Oh, Justice, you don't chop your turn now. Move, clear space for us. I beg.
I still have him as a mentor. I can't leave him. Don't forget. Don't worry.
Hey, I bet you people should leave us. So leave our Mr. Chike here for us.
Please leave it for us.
Yes. So.
Participants, please on your camera, please. Special Sokon. I can see many other participants from different sections. Please turn on your camera, please. Yeah. Could there be an issue with turning on cameras?
Yeah, I can see our moderator, Anieko. I can see.
I think you have muted their videos, so they might not be able to turn it on.
Okay, I think they should try again. I have given them the access. Participants, try on your video or your audio. Still not possible. Wow. Okay, they are. I can see a section director from Pohako section, Mohammed Othman. Thank you, sir.
Abuja section, well done.
Okay.
The young man Ovie. Now I finally see your face. How are you, Ovie? Good.
I'm fine, sir.
Good.
Okay, so can we just get a thumbs up for a quick photo session? Thank you. Okay. SPE oil and gas. When I say SPE, the oil and gas. SPE
oil and gas.
Oil and gas.
Oil and gas.
Thank you. So at this juncture, we are up for the interactive session. So we can interact, and in 5 minutes, we end the meeting. Thank you.
MC off and on. Well done as usual.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for discovering him for us.
Yes.
Well done, MC.
It's not only oil and gas mentoring. He was a petroleum engineer who decided he wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
Well done.
I mean, I thank you very much. Hey, Justice, I go catch you for Abuja. I they still come.
Thank you.
Well done.
Chike, thank you.
Chike, well done.
Mohammed,
Yeah, Justice, thank you very much.
Now your head shape be this. No
Thank
be
you, Madam
face.
Amina. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
For bringing my GMB. I'm so happy. Yeah,
Right,
and I also make sure many of my colleagues from the office joined the meeting. I think Osakwe also was there.
Yes. Well done there.
Yeah. I know now you dragon. Thank you. Thank you.
No trouble.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Chike, permission to pull out. Madam Amina,
well, you have permission before.
Thank you very much.
Your Oga query me.
Exactly. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Sachike. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.
I think